Hello, hello, and good morning. Thank you for joining me for episode 6 of Sit Down Stand Up. I think that actually we nailed it that time. I believe we're on episode number 6, which is... it's number 6. I was going to say it's fantastic, but I think that's just kind of... We're just getting started here, so it's not really that big of a deal. But I'm here with my mighty mug of marketing, and yesterday went off the rails, not going to lie. Kind of lost in the sauce, as they say. I started talking about the dryer setting that was supposed to just be done, and then start talking about my stand-up exploits here in Texas. I don't know why I said exploits. It was just one try. And somehow I ended up talking about unions and SAG and filmmaking and all that kind of crazy stuff. So, which got way off the beaten trail. It was not necessarily in line with the not unfunny storytelling. So I do apologize for that, mea culpa, but I am going to try to correct that. Now, I am glistening a little bit because I got out of the shower. It is not early morning. I must confess, it is not the wee hours of the morning. We are still technically in the morning. It's not even late morning, but we are. It is not the early morning that I usually strive for, because I was debating whether to do it or not, and so but I did get a shower. And I love my favorite thing to do is getting a shower and then getting out of the shower and immediately start sweating. That feels great. And it's kind of natural. The shower creates kind of a sauna effect. So you get out of the shower and you step into a kind of a hot sauna, and you've got to get through that and get through it. I don't know. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it doesn't. It's my favorite thing, because then it feels like I need to go get a shower again. But in any case, here I am. Here we are. Let us go. I'm now I'm in Houston, Texas. So I had my only other stand-up reference. My last stand-up attempt was out in New Jersey, Bridgewater, where it was crickets for the 2.5 minutes that I was up there. It was terrifying, and it pretty much kind of discouraged me from trying it again. But I don't know why. I just started getting the bug. Like I just wanted to try it again. So I started putting together a set. And I actually have about 45 minutes, but it's meandering. It's very meandering, as a lot of this is, and that's why I'm trying to refine a lot of it. But I narrowed it down, got it down to, I could get it down to 6 minutes. I could get it down to 5 if I wanted to, but I would have to do some really serious lopping. But I got it down where I could do it without pausing for laughs, because that would be presumptuous, although that is kind of the whole point. I got it down to 6.5 minutes. So I started looking at different venues that I could go to, and unfortunately, all of them were in the Houston area. I'm in Katy, which is a good hour away, with traffic not being great, which it almost always is not great. It's like an hour and a half, and the most of them have some variation of 2 to 3 minutes, but you put your name in a hat. I mentioned this before. You put your name in a bucket or a hat or some kind of container, and they draw it. It's going to be random, is my point. And that didn't really appeal to me, but there was one place that actually said pretty much just open mic nights, bring your best material, sign up, or contact so-and-so to sign up. So I was like, all right. So I contacted so-and-so, reached out, said, hey, I'm interested in doing stand-up this Thursday. What do I got to do? And he said, oh, great. Look forward to seeing you. Just come in, sign in with the host when you get here, and let him know you're here for stand-up, and we'll get your name on a list. I'm like, all right, great. Sounds pretty straightforward. Now, I did look at the venue before I left, and I have since revisited the website, and I don't know how my brain rechanged. Like, in my mind, as I'm driving out there, I crap you not, in my mind, I am picturing like one of those kind of like jazz lounges where it's like really dim lighting and, just kind of a murmur, a baseline murmur of conversation, very polite, very kind of restrained. Guys are in suits, gals are in their dresses, the dark leather. It's either like this dark reddish color or, black, really very chic and elegant. You got a guy, so he's got a cigar, like, yeah, we're gonna share a comedian here, Dollface. He's gonna be funny. He's gonna make us laugh. She's like, really? I certainly hope so. That would be so exciting. I would love it so ever much. So ever much. And they have that kind of banter, and sure, absolutely. And what that kind of vibe. They got the hats, and she's got the, I don't know, what the heck did gals wear? The hair. She's got the hair. That's what I had in my mind. That kind of atmosphere. 50 to 60 people, kind of intimate, kind of quiet, kind of classy. That's what I thought I was going to be walking into. But I get there and think industrial cafeteria with lime green upholstery. That's kind of what it was. And to be fair, when I went back, I could have sworn they changed the website pictures, because when I went back and looked, that's exactly what it looked, exactly the way it did in the photos. But somehow, maybe in when my venue search, I got them confused. Maybe there was a venue that kind of looks like that, what I had in my head, and how I thought it was going to go down. But for whatever reason, that's what I thought this place was, and it was not. But it's fine, because the venue is just a venue. It doesn't mean anything necessarily. And it's bright, well lit, so and I wasn't a big fan of hearing the, smelling the cigar smoke and hearing people talk like this, not like this the whole time. So I was actually going to be a win-win. I was okay with the situation as it was. There's a bartender. There's nobody else there. There's a bartender, and it's empty. There's one person kind of sitting on there's a couch, like a white kind of couch off to the side. There's a gal sitting there. Otherwise, it's empty. So I go to the bartender and say, "Hey, I'm here for the stand-up. I was told I needed to sign up with a host." And he says, "Oh, the guy you need to sign up with won't be in for another hour." I said, "Well, yeah, I know that's the guy that I talked to. He said I needed to sign in once I got here to make sure I was on the list, so I was able to go tonight." I said, "Oh, no, you just sign in with him. So you got to wait for him to come here." So I got there an hour early because I was afraid that I didn't want to show up like a half hour early or 15 minutes early and try to put my name on the list, and they go, "Oh, we've already got like 12 comics booked for tonight, so you won't be able to make it." And then I just have to go back home. So I got there an hour early just to make sure I got on the list. And if I went first, that was going to be fine, because I kind of had the feeling I'm not going to be a tough act to follow, and I didn't want to have to follow somebody else necessarily. So I didn't mind if I was one of the first ones on stage. But no, so I'm just sitting there for a half hour or for an hour waiting for the guy to arrive. So I don't know how the wires got crossed, why he told me to come. I mean, the initial thing was just contact him. And I was like, okay. So I contact him, and then he says, sign with host. And then the bartender says, there's no host. You just need to contact. So anyway, so I'm sitting there, and again, it's very quiet. I'm just wondering, like, when are the people coming in? And I'm thinking in my mind that this is just kind of like the foyer kind of area, because it looked very cafeteria-esque. There were just some like small, a few white tables here and there, like two tops, for 2 or 3 people maybe. And so but there's a doorway in the back. So I'm thinking maybe that's the actual like restaurant. And so I ask him, and he says, would you like a drink? I was like, well, I'm going to be here for a while. So I was like, maybe I'll just have one drink just to kind of, so I'm sitting just in case the bar kind of fills up and I don't want to be sitting there taking up a seat. And so I asked him if there was any food. And he's like, no, we've got some snack food in the, in the refrigerator. They had these little like a 7-Eleven, you go and you can, again, very cafeteria. They don't even, it's not even a restaurant. Like in my mind, I'm thinking this very elegant, very nice, posh, sit down, eat, enjoy a show kind of a thing. And they don't even have food there in the strictest sense of the word. So I'm not feeling particularly great, but okay. And I asked him, I said, well, does it usually fill up? Like where, when did the people start showing up? He said, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Usually it's just a lot of comics in here. So it's just getting progressively worse. But then I redeem it. I say, oh no, that's okay. Because if there's other comedians here, you can workshop it. That a lot of comedians do that kind of thing. Granted, you're usually workshopping with an audience, and you let people know, hey, I'm working out this material, so just bear with me. I'm just trying to flesh it out, figure some stuff out, get some immediate feedback. But if you could do that with comedians, even better. So if it's an intimate group of a bunch of, up and coming comedians, and we're all kind of collaborating, and oh man, I really like that joke about this, but maybe you should think about setting it up like this, something like that. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be educational. It's going to be a chance for me to grow and learn. It's going to be wonderful. And about 5 minutes later, a gentleman sits down next to me. Now, I just want to say he's a very nice gentleman, very, very nice. And that's as far as I can go with that. Let's just say when he later mentioned that he did mushrooms, and he'd done them that day, in fact, I was surprised not at all. This was not something that made me go, huh, really? You sure don't act like somebody who's hopped up on mushrooms. No, sir. And in fact, his disposition was such. He was very pale. I don't know if he was fair skinned or just didn't get out much. Very pale, very lean. Wouldn't say scrawny, but very, very lean. and he wore like I don't know if it's like a bucket hat. I think it's like what fishermen's wear, but it had no like body to the brim or anything. It'd been very well used, so it was kind of saggy, just kind of looked like a saggy bag over his head kind of thing. He began to look, in my eyes, a bit like a mushroom. He was kind of growing into his dietary habit. But again, very, very, very nice. Just definitely off. Like did a lot of nodding, like he was rocking out to something, but he had no earbuds. I mean, we were talking, and like he'd be doing this, and then he'd look over at me and be like, so, and just kind of keep doing this. And he'd go back, and then he'd look at his, he had a notebook. And so that's when when I first saw him, I'm like, okay, he's going to be quirky, right? He's like one of those eccentric geniuses where he's got like this, this notebook. It's full of these amazing jokes, and maybe autistic, I think that's what we call it on the spectrum or something. Maybe, just that unique way of thinking, maybe a little socially awkward, but he's got his material. He's going to knock it out of the park, and he's just going to be, on it. No. That was not who I was working with there. He did have the notebook, and I kind of glanced a little bit. Now, I wasn't going to pilfer his ideas. I'm just kind of curious. I just saw a lot of like Hispanic this, Puerto Rican this, white this. Like it was all racially centric. So I didn't really explore it any further. But we started talking about the stand-up, and I said, have you been here before? He said, yeah, I was here actually last week, and I was afraid that I was going to miss it this week, so that's why I came early. I was like, okay. And I said, well, so what's the crowd usually like? Oh, he's like, it's just usually like sometimes there's like one or two like people like just chilling, but most of it is just comedians, like, we're just kind of hanging out and doing the thing. And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of what I was thinking, but now it's reframed. If all the comedians are kind of like my mushroom friend over here, my fun guy, then this might not be the educational powwow I was hoping for. And sure enough, I saw a guy come in. He actually had a tripod. He had a camera on a tripod, I think it was just a tripod for his phone. But he had a tripod. He looked professional, had a backpack on. So I'm like, okay, this guy looks legit. He also had a notebook. I'm like, okay, this guy's cooking. He's recording his own stuff. And again, he looked a little, he's very, very gangly, very, very lean. Looks kind of like like you think of like a bookworm or something. So I'm thinking this guy knows his business. And I didn't get to talk to him before the show, but I did get to see his stand-up afterward. And no, not that at all. Anyway, they just keep trickling in, and I'm just kind of getting a vibe like, okay, you can't judge book by a cover. That's what I'm saying. I'm just taking it for granted that everybody here is like a awesome up and coming stand-up comedian. And the guy who led the show off. Now here I've got there's a very important aspect of this. So as I said, in my mind, it was going to be a very dimly lit, jazz kind of thing where if I were to leave at any point, it would not be noticed because it's dark and there's a lot of people, and one guy kind of just vacating isn't going to be a big deal. So I'm not going to be making eye contact with anybody. I'm just going to be off in the back corner, just kind of chilling. Like in New Jersey, that Bridgewater Club, the place that I told you about, it wasn't at all what I was thinking about. There was nobody with a fedora and a cigar and doll face and all that. There was none of that, but it was very dimly lit, and it was, very, very, like when you see actual like videos of comedy clubs, it kind of looked like that. So this was not that at all. It's brightly lit, and I chose to sit for whatever reason smack dab in the middle of the bar. Like I chose the middle lime colored seat at the bar, not realizing that they were going to set up the microphone. Yes, there was no dining room. As I said, there was no food. There was no dining room. This was it. This cafeteria foyer that I thought like this is just kind of like a little bar area. This was the performance venue. They set up the microphone and the big, they got the speaker, the typical thing like a DJ has at a wedding or something. Put the speaker on a stand right up there. Put the microphone directly in front of me. So if I turn around in my seat, I am now facing whoever it is that is talking. They are 30 feet away from me, maybe. Again, very, very intimate venue. And like I said, just smack dab in the middle, I am looking at them and they're looking at me. Their default is at me. So I'm now having to perform while I'm watching because I know what it's like when you're looking at somebody, if they got their arms crossed or they're kind of doing this or they're like, it takes all the energy out of your sails. Like, and sometimes you'll get, you'll see comedians pick on people like that. They'll be like, oh, this guy over here, he's not having it. No, or he's not going to laugh. Like, then you notice, you can see that because you can't look out and not see anybody. So, and especially if this person is dead center so you're going to start there and you look around the room and you always come back to this point. So I am now the star witness of this debacle. And I feel it's incumbent upon me to give positive feedback. So, but the problem is I even if you're legitimately funny, I don't usually laugh out loud. And that's not because, it's really hard to make me laugh because I got high standards. I'm just not that, I don't emote that way. Like usually when I listen to stand up or watch stand up, now when it's live and you're there, there's an energy there. It's a different vibe. So there are times where I've gone to a live show and I have laughed out loud or chuckled at least. And usually I get one or two, even if I'm just watching a video, but usually it's a bemused smile and just kind of like, just little things like that. Like I would be the worst. If you just multiplied me and I was comprised an entire audience, it would be death for any performer because like I'm at a concert, like I don't stand up, like it's a rock concert. I'm just kind of sitting there going like this. Yeah. Close my eyes, vibing to it. That's it. Everybody else is like, yeah, rock on, doing the whole thing. And I'm pleasantly enjoying it. Unless the people in front of me are standing up, in which case now I'm not happy. Now I'm not enjoying myself and I'm trying to kind of view between their arms and like, you can't be mad at people. They're there to have a good time. Right. And you're at a concert. So then sometimes I have to reluctantly stand up just so that I can actually see what's going on. And sometimes I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to listen to it, which is why I don't usually do live events, live concerts, because I always think, and this is sacrilege, I like it better on the CD. That ages me. I like it better from the studio because you can also hear more of the subtle music. Like there are some songs that have this like, they just use like a certain instrument. It's used very sparingly and very, very, I don't know, selectively, but it really makes the song for me. It really kind of hits home that chorus or that moment or that, the bridge, whatever it is, it makes it hit home. And when you're in a live venue, it's all just kind of blah, it's just, and you could say, oh, maybe they didn't mix it. Well, I just haven't had a great experience. It's usually just very loud and not quite polished versions of what I'm used to hearing. So the energy is there, but I just want to hear the music. So yeah, I'm not a concert guy really. So even at a concert, I'm not up there. So, and even if you're hilarious, you could be a Gaffy and you could be whoever. And I'm just like, that's funny. Like I will say the person's funny. I'm like, oh dude, you're hilarious. And I don't like people like me because I'm like, if it was hilarious, then laugh. That's what normal people do when they think something is hilarious. I remember there was a couple gals in college that would do that. I'd say something and be like, oh, that's hilarious. I'm like, I'm waiting for the indicator of hilarity, but you saying it's hilarious is not the same as you laughing. But well, now I get it. That was their way of expressing it. But instead of, well, no, I mean, that's really it. I mean, that's, if I was going to give somebody feedback, I'd say, no, I think you're hilarious. I think you're great. I just don't laugh. So, but they do laugh. That's the thing about these gals. They do laugh. And they weren't, it wasn't like they were stingy about it. They just, I don't know. I don't think you realize it when you say something is funny, but you're not laughing at all. Like if you chuckle at least, if there's something involuntary about you that indicates something was tickled, something you were tickled by something, then if you say it's hilarious, then that supports your conclusion. But if there is none of that, then you think, well, do you feel socially obligated to let me know that it's hilarious? Because all signs point to no. But anyway, I got over it. Clearly, didn't bother me. Still doesn't bother me to this day. But I'm that guy. I don't make a lot of noise. I don't do a lot. I have to go out of my way to emote, which is weird because when I'm talking, I'm very animated. And if I'm actively listening to you personally, I'll be sitting there, yeah. And I'm not doing that on purpose. It's just how I engage with it because I'm excited about what you're saying or I'm interested. But when it's stand up, it's like I'm processing it. I'm like, oh, okay, where's he going with it? Like, I'm not trying to figure it out. It's just there's a different kind of engagement that I have with it. And so unless it really takes me by surprise or it really just is off the wall or something, I just don't laugh. So I'm aware of this. And now I'm like, okay, now I have to perform as an audience member just so that this guy doesn't get dead space right in front of him. So that's the setup. That's my burden. That's my joy, is I get to be front and center. And people say, oh, that's narcissistic. You're thinking about, I'm thinking about the other guy. I'm not like poor me. I'm just thinking I don't want to be a black hole of non-emotion or whatever. So I'm not gonna fake a laugh, because that's hard and it's a lot of energy. But I'm gonna, if he says something and it's like, he's making an observational thing, I'll be like, give him the nod, and the yeah, or if he's like, I don't know what's the deal with this. I'm like, I don't know, just trying to give him some feedback. So it's like you are getting audience interaction, because to my credit, nobody else in that freaking audience was doing a gosh darn thing. It was almost like a blessing that they were just looking at you. From being up there, but then I would look around, between acts, or, as somebody's talking, sometimes I kind of glance around, and like some people are on their phone, and these are, I forgot that this is an important part. It was, I want to say 12 to 14 comedians. And there was one gal, she stayed on the couch the entire time, was kind of just chilling there. At one point, there were 3 high schoolers that came in, just wandered in and at the start, and then wandered off like halfway through. And I think there were 2 other guys that were like friends of the comedians that kind of came in, and they were chilling, and they decided they were going to do stand-up because it didn't look all that hard to them. Well, that was about it. Then you had the bartender, and then you had the guy who was hosting, who also did stand-up at the beginning and the end. I mean, I think that's pretty typical of the host. And that was about it. So a very, very small group. And yeah, it wasn't what I had in my mind. But anyway, we're gonna get to the first guy. So that's the setting. So there's not a whole lot of people to be looking at. A lot of them aren't really necessarily, don't seem to be invested in it. They're there to do their bit, and a lot of them, they might, after they finish their set. We had 5 minutes. The guy says, "Okay, you got 5 minutes." So I'm like, "All right, well, I'm just gonna go through as much of what I've prepared as possible." And then when I get the signal, I'll just wrap it up and call it good. That's fine. Whatever. At that point, I'm not really necessarily feeling that this is the opportunity that I was hoping for, one way or the other, to get any kind of real legitimate feedback. So the first guy gets up there, and again, seemed very nice. Like, I saw him talking with the host. They seemed to have rapport and seemed like a good dude. But he wore a Megadeth t-shirt. Now, for some of you, that's not going to mean anything. If you're my age, chances are you went to school with someone who wore a Megadeth t-shirt, and people who have grown up and still wear Megadeth t-shirts. And I don't know anything about the band. It's nothing to say about the band. They're very distinct shirts. They say Megadeth on them, which is a pretty, poignant name. It's not something you just easily forget. And, it's got stuff like a guy getting electrocuted in an electric chair, and, like kind of almost like Garbage Pail type stuff, just like really gross out kind of things, or macabre scenes. It's a very metal band, I guess. Anyway, when I say, so he was wearing a Megadeth t-shirt, this is the imagery that should come to mind, because everybody that I've seen at my age who wears a Megadeth t-shirt usually looks like this. Not always, but usually shorter, a little bit of paunch, Swamp Thing hair, like very long, very tangly, which when they're younger, it's not quite as bad because it's like long hair tangled on long hair. But as they get older and it thins out, it becomes long hair on scalp. So it's kind of like a Worm Tongue Smeagol type look from Lord of the Rings, if you're familiar with that reference. So it's a little unkempt, and facial hair is incidental. Like, they don't really know that it's there or particularly care about it. It's not that it grows long. It's just very, I mean, look, I'm not one to talk. I haven't done anything with mine either, but I don't have it shaped to anything and just kind of let it ride. I'm just letting it go. This gentleman had a very goatee shape of facial hair, but not what you'd consider manicured or well kempt. So you can imagine a very Hollywood version of a Megadeth guy, with the long hair slick pulled back into this nice ponytail and this really sharp goatee. This is Temu version of that. And again, it's not saying one thing or another about the person or about the band. It's just a look. It's usually a company that, and the hygiene doesn't, I wouldn't take it for granted, really. I never got within proximity of this gentleman. He might have smelled amazing, but he did not appear like he would smell particularly pleasant. But that's neither here nor there, because if the guy's funny, right? Well, he's got a notebook. I think he's got his phone. Almost everybody that went up there had a notebook, but yet what they had to say were, I'm like, did you really need to write that down? But it looks really good. It looks very professional. So he got that sitting down, he's scrolling through, and he starts off, and he's talking about sports betting. Now, he does not look to me, I'm not a betting man, but he does not look to me to be someone who would be into sports betting or sports of any kind. Again, can't judge a book by its cover. So, but there's something in the back of my head going, he's going somewhere with this that has nothing to do with sports. And I was correct, because I'm not sure how he got there, but within about 30 seconds, we were now talking about cockfighting. Now I'm going to pause here very briefly and say, from now on, I'm going to say the word rooster instead of cock, because if you say rooster without the fighting on there, it sounds pretty crass, because everybody knows that is a slang term for male genitalia. So not to put too fine of a point on there, but that's what it's referring to. And it just feels kind of raunchy. To me, not to Megadeth. Megadeth was all about that word. And that's why I need to say that, because otherwise I would be saying rooster. Well, that word so many times. And again, it's like a naughty word. Oh, we can't say it. It's just, it just feels crass to say it. And so I'd rather just say rooster. So, on pause. So he starts talking about rooster fighting. And what he starts going for, very obviously, is the double entendre, where he's talking about both the barn animal, the barn fowl, if you will, and male genitals. But what he doesn't know, what he's never learned, is that for a double entendre to work, the audience, it has to be clever enough so that the audience can imagine, not picture necessarily, but imagine, or it sounds like a phrase or a statement that would apply to both the animal and the genital. It's got to work for both. Otherwise, it's not clever or funny. He did not know this key aspect of the bit that he had put together. So what we really got was about 45 seconds to a minute. I don't know. Time kind of did a weird thing as he was talking, where he was just talking about his rooster. There was nothing clever about it. It wasn't like there was any kind of parallel to be made. He told us about how his rooster behaves, the rigidity of his rooster, where his rooster goes. Oh, the places you'll see that little rooster. And unless I missed the mark considerably, none of those things actually apply to roosters. What comes out of a rooster? I mean, that's how graphic we got. I'm not going to go any further with that, but that's how much into it he went. So he was just talking literally about his rooster. But because he had established that he was referencing rooster fighting, and for some reason in his mind, that made everything he said funny. Now, there was one other aspect. After he did that for about a minute, he mercifully switched gears. I don't remember what it was exactly, but I do remember that he seemed to have a rash on the side of his face. Now, he could have gotten that from anywhere, to be fair. I mean, he may have been frolicking in a meadow and wearied himself and laid down in a bed of poison ivy. I don't know. I do know that there are very dubious sources, reasons why people might have a very visible rash. I haven't studied it. I don't know like the details of it, so I couldn't identify it. I don't know if it would naturally just be on one side of the face or not. Maybe it was just something the guy was struggling with in general, like some kind of acne or whatever. But it looked like a rash of dubious origins. But at the same time, to think that it came from those dubious origins is dubious in and of itself, because I really was having a hard time picturing Megadeth being dubious, if you know what I mean. I'm trying to dance around a lot of stuff here, but it was painful. And I'm sitting there, and again, he's after every line, he's looking at his phone, and he looks up, and of course he looks at me directly, and so I gotta You know, doing like trying to be like, yeah. Like, how do you react to that? I mean, and now if I was on my A game, I would have gone up there because I think I went 5th or 6th. So, but you're not going to forget that. And look, and to the credit of the audience, my fellow comedians there, unlike in Bridgewater, New Jersey, where when the gentleman talked about being familial sodomy and people laughed about it, nobody was laughing at his rooster euphemisms, such that they were. I don't even know how to describe it really, but they didn't really laugh at anything. So it wasn't like it wasn't a bad crowd in that they were laughing at like things you go, really? That you thought that was funny? But it was just dead silence pretty much the entire time. So I'm trying to fill in the gaps, I guess, a little bit just with my nonverbals. Like, okay, like I don't want to give him what my actual response is, which is like, you know, just stop it, just move on to something else. Like, okay, like we get it. Yeah. So anyway, that's that's a dour way to end it, but we are out of time for today. We will pick this up next time with the further, and then of course my debacle, which doesn't go much better, but at least I got nothing. I got the same reaction he did, which made me feel pretty bad. But anyway, we will take that up next time. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.